So we're right to go there, Craig? Yep. Okay, I formally open this Parks and Recreation Committee and welcome everyone here. We have an apology from Alderman Thomas, but I think we've got Councillor Sherlock, Councillor Coates, and online a moment ago was the Deputy Lord Mayor, Helen Burnett. And we've got no one to co-opt. Oh, sorry, Jax must have just stepped in there. So, and we also got Councillor Jax Fox. So, welcome everyone. Yeah. Oh, so okay, we can co-opt. Would someone like to move to co-opt? Thank you, Councillor Sherlock. Put that. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. So, Councillor Coates, you're a committee member for tonight. Confirmation of minutes. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Sherlock. Put that. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Consideration of supplementary items. No subs. Right. Indication of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Don't think any of us play football or Sea Scouts at this stage, are we? So we move on. Transfer of agenda items. And now I've actually talked to the General Deputation of the 1st Derwent Sea Scouts and they're quite happy for it to be on the open agenda. We were going to thinking that should go to the closed agenda, but they're happy to have it on the open agenda. So we move to reports. The first one is deputation from the Hobart Football Club. That's Josh Bunting. If Josh, maybe if you'd like join us at the table here, it's just easier. And usually we say 5 minutes, but we're fairly flexible with that, but trying to keep it to 5 minutes. And then at the end, I'll open it for questions. Yep. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Just before we get underway, so I'm Josh Bunting, I'm the President of Hobart Football Club. I'd like to thank the Chair of the committee, Alderman Briscoe, for our previous dialogue leading to this meeting. I'd also like to take the chance to thank committee members for finding the time to consider our club's position. The Hobart Footy Club is a community football club. We're a non-for-profit club and our fundamental focus is on grassroots participation. We regularly support various charitable initiatives, including things such as support for a club member's family friend who had a 6-month-old boy with cancer that we've supported over the last week. We had a player last year in 2021 whose family lost all their possessions in a fire, and we raised over $20,000, in kind and contributions to support the family of our member. We work with various charities. We partner with the Rotary Club of Hobart, assisting youth with mentoring and gaining gainful employment. Assisting our club members work through government agencies, call centres, building industry, factory labouring, etc. We've had involvement with the Centrelinks Back to Work program. We supported Ronald McDonald House, various blanket drives, World's Greatest Shave and other charities. So that's just a touch point on some of our work with the community. The Hobart Football Club actually has a history dating back to 1901, primarily at the TCA ground on the Queen's Domain, and with the current form of the Hobart Football Club founded in 1944 after a brief recess for World War II. We currently field 8 teams, boys and girls, men's and women's, from Auskick to junior boys and girls. Generally we have an under-19s reserves and senior men's program as well as a master rules over 35s team. In 2022 our junior complement's a little bit smaller than we'd like based on previous years, but that includes Auskick under-9s and under-13 girls, under-10 and under-13 boys. We've got a rich history sort of at a top flight with 10 senior Tasmanian premierships. We've also got over 25 players that have played in the AFL. But fundamentally our club is about participation. It's a pillar of the community and we look to encourage participation. One of the ways we look to do that is through sort of reasonable registration fees for our members. Our registration fees for junior football starting at $100, which is the lowest in sort of southern Tasmania. Senior registration fee of $140 for our members, plus $50 insurance levied to the competition. So again, fairly reasonably priced, because we know that part of our obligation to the community is encouraging grassroots participation. In 2022, our participant numbers exceeded 180 participants, and there's been a little bit of fluctuation over the last couple of years with COVID, but it's sort of steady around that level. The reason I'm before the committee today is a recognition from internally within our club of our need to be sustainable. Certainly recent media commentaries indicated a proposal in the Kingborough Council region to incrementally bring in ground hire fees across a number of years, looking at sort of a final rate of around $15 an hour. Now, I understand that the memo provides a bit of an overview of the fees that Hobart Football Club's been paying, and there is some differentiation based on juniors and seniors and various other elements to it, but the reality is the Hobart Football Club currently pays $55 an hour to train and $90 per hour to host matches at the TCA ground. Concerningly for me, in addition as a regular user of council facilities, is the blanket policy of no refunds for seasonal hires due to cancellations resulting from ground closures. And that's certainly something that's been prominent this year. I understand that there's a stretch across grounds across the south. But the reality for us at the moment is that for the privilege of representing and supporting the City of Hobart, the club's first $16,000 each year goes directly towards the Hobart City Council. This money, in one way or another, either comes from increased fees to participants, therefore discouraging physical, mental and social benefits from participation in sport, or it comes at an additional burden to our already stretched volunteer base. The big issue at the moment is that despite the best efforts of all involved, we're not meeting our obligations each year, meaning in the short to medium term we realise as an organisation that we are not sustainable. To paint a picture of some fixed costs that the club needs to meet in order to be sustainable, in an ordinary year, and I'll provide some figures for the committee to sort of review later on, I'll table something around that. In an ordinary year, 2020 being the exception, like everything, the cost of electricity, umpires, insurance and ground hire, which really is some sort of fixed costs that we have very limited control over, comes between $40,000 and $50,000. Of this, the ground hire component makes up $16,000. And again, if I look over a period sort of from 2018 through to last year, the club has sustained some significant financial losses between $28,000 and $40,000. Within the Southern Football League, the competition that we participate in, we're understanding that we're amongst the lowest player payments in the competition. And perhaps our ability to be successful and sustainable is also limited further as a result of that. But if I was looking at a breakdown of sort of those fixed costs, and that sort of sustainability challenge that we know we're facing, I'll just quote you some figures from 2021, and I'll use ballpark figures for ease of the committee here. So ground hire was $16,000, electricity $5,700, umpires $12,700. We've got two components of insurance totalling $7,300, making up for a total sort of fixed cost base really that is outside our control as an organisation of $41,500. Now, final result last year was around about a $40,000 loss. 2020 is hard to compare. That was sort of more modest. There were obviously some fee reductions based on a lower pro rata usage of the ground. There were also some concession from players who were willing to sort of forgo match payments in that year, and that was something that the football across the board probably did quite well in 2020. But if I just contrast the $16,000 amongst sort of colleagues within the Southern Football League and within Southern Tasmania that we compete against, and we realise that sport is a bit of a competitive industry, so we need to be competing with others in order to be sustainable. You know, there's a degree of having some success, there's a degree of having sort of good numbers and sort of ensuring we have the resources to meet the expectations of our members, whether it be cleanliness of change rooms, whether it be equipment that we need to provide, etc. So I've had some discussions with other sporting clubs just to understand, and these are within the Southern Football League competition, just to understand where we sit relative to other community clubs that we're competing against. And my understanding on those discussions is that the Hobart Football Club is paying significantly more than any other club in Southern Tasmania, and I'd go as far to say more than double other clubs on a pro rata basis. And this further jeopardises our sustainability, something that we're aware of and we're looking to address through various initiatives, particularly in the volunteer space. So given those conversations with other football clubs have been on the basis of trust, I won't be discussing individual club components, but I will sort of speak generally to the observations from those discussions. The reality is in our competition that the most expensive other club to train pays $33 an hour compared to the Hobart Football Club paying $55 an hour plus lighting surcharge to train. The most expensive match day, so Saturday, regardless of length, paid by another club is $250 for all day. Now, that particular club has an under-19s program, so that incorporates 3 games. On that basis, the Hobart Football Club would be paying approximately $600 for the same use of the facility. And there's actually 4 clubs, so around half the clubs in our competition pay either no charge or a nominal service fee. Certainly the Hobart Footy Club, we understand that council has to meet sort of maintenance costs, and we're very appreciative of certainly the standard of the playing surface. We know we have some other work to do, and we're working around our other facilities at the TCA ground, but we're certainly very appreciative of the playing surface, and I know it's been a challenging year in that space. We don't want a free ride, but what we want is a level playing field to ensure that we can encourage participation in the City of Hobart for our players and members, that we can compete in sort of a community sporting sector, and that we're going to be sustainable going forward. Otherwise, the reality in a few years is that we simply won't exist. The proposal I'd put to the committee is that the council looks at a ground hire fee. I'd advocate for a fee of around $7,000 per year, including lighting. Interestingly, that would still place the football club as the highest paying club in the Southern Football League.
Mr. Bunning, look, I'm sorry, you've gone 8 minutes, but I've been very generous there. So would you like to just sum up?
Yeah, happy to do that. Again, so estimate on usage, I've put a component together which I'm happy to table as well, which would be around sort of $6,000 a year, and happy to sort of flex that up to $7,000 a year, but the basis of that is around a $33 an hour rate, which is comparable to the highest paying club outside of the Hobart Football Club in the Southern Football League competition. Just in closing, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present the case. I'd urge the committee and the council more broadly to consider the rich benefits to the community over the past 122 years and to play your part in supporting us to continue to deliver this benefit to the community. Just in closing, I'd like to touch upon something that was raised by the Director, just through the Chair in the memo presented with the agenda tonight. Certainly wasn't my intention to comment on other organisations, but can point to a particular organisation which from 2016, 2017 through to 2021 received over $65,000 in reduced fees or charges and rental rebates. And so that's another football club participating in the City of Hobart. I'm happy to discuss that out of committee as well, but just as a point of clarity. So happy to table a little bit of a breakdown through the Chair of sort of an extract of the challenges in being sustainable and a little bit of an overview of what the other clubs are paying.
Have you got enough copies for each member?
I think I do, yes.
Give it to Paul with this. Thank you very much. Is there any questions from any of the committee members? Thanks, Councillor Coates.
Look, thank you through you, Chair. Thank you for that overview. It was very fascinating, and it's interesting to hear, I guess, the markedly different rates that you find yourself having to pay because you fall within the City of Hobart versus your competitors in other council areas. I just want to sort of get a sense from you, you know, I guess you get what you pay for in a way. Do you think the TCA ground is a better ground than perhaps some of these other ones in the Brightons and the Kingboroughs in the Huonvilles?
That's a good question. Thank you, Councillor Coates. So across the board, I'd say the playing surface of the TCA is comparable to other playing surfaces throughout Southern Tasmania. It's just good playing surface, and I think there's been significant improvement there in the last number of years. As far as the facilities, so the change rooms, the spectator, and the various amenities, I'd say that they were below par across the southern region, respectfully. And that includes our club rooms, that includes toilet and change room facilities not being up to sort of modern standards as far as showers, toilets, privacy, all those considerations that are mapped out through AFL. Understand that that one or two of the cricket sort of change rooms might meet that modern standard. As far as grandstand and other amenities, I think we're not shying away from the fact that there's work to do, and we've been working with the City of Hobart for a number of years, still looking to progress a proposal to sort of bring improvement and capital works to the TCA ground. And I can see there Officer Shannon Avery, who I've been working with that on. So certainly we know there's work to do in facilities, and to be polite, I think that below par other than the playing surface. So
Good. Any further questions? Councillor Jack?
Sure. Has the this cost differential, has that always been apparent, or is that more pronounced recently?
Thank you, Councillor Fox. That cost differential, that's been something anecdotally for years that the club has been aware of. Looking between 2018 and 2019 there, we can see an increase in fees from around $10,000 to around $16,500. So what was already sort of a cost differential we were aware of to other clubs has sort of increased dramatically in that period of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Sherlock?
Very much for your deputation, really appreciate it. Just wondering, when you were talking about the lights, you have lights at the ground, don't you? Is that correct? Are there other sporting grounds that don't have lights? Do you know of those? And are you actually paying for those lights as well, or do you hire them? What's the process there?
Thank you, Councillor Sherlock. So I understand there is a component built in to the hourly use around those lights. So there is a surcharge imposed, which is included in that $16,000 figure. I'd have to take sort of particular details from other clubs around that, but it's probably, as far as standard of lights, we might have sort of on the higher end of things. But certainly that's an increasing area throughout various council regions that other clubs are sort of starting to have, and certainly a number of those other clubs paying nominal fees would have that included. And just on the other component of electricity, so outside of the lights, is the Hobart Football Club does cover its own utilities as far as other electricity usage in club rooms, kiosks, change rooms, etc.
Good. And I think I called Councillor Fox Councillor Jack, so I'm sorry about that. I slip of the tongue. Deputy, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thanks for your presentation, Josh. Look, I'm just the overall approach will be to do better coordination across the municipality and with Greater Hobart. What do you think the best way of kind of getting that level playing field, as you say, occurring?
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. We'll understand that previous discussions with organisations certainly appears from where I sit to have been sort of discrete individual conversations. I would encourage, as I think you're alluding to, a broader conversation around organisations in the City of Hobart and where those sort of rates sit. I would make the comment certainly on comparison with other regions that the City of Hobart does appear to be charging higher fees, and again, I'd bring the question: does that provide, a sustainable sort of base for your organisations within the City of Hobart? Certainly, while I am advocating for our club, I understand the benefit of clubs more generally, and would be supportive of them as well.
And just a further question. So I think the report, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the report suggests that there's a significant subsidy regardless. I think it's a 15 to 85% ratio. So what do you think would be reasonable in relation to that? It's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Well, it's difficult for me to put a figure on that. What I will comment on, I think, just looking at the memo that was circulated with the agenda. So my understanding was that sort of base of the 15% was calculated around, was it 2017 perhaps? And I'm happy to be corrected through the chair. Yep, I'm getting a nod. 2017, where that figure was calculated. I would sort of make the observation that the Hobart Football Club's charges have increased subsequent to that period. I see a sort of a market increase between 2018 and 2019, an increase of nearly double, not quite double. I understand there was potentially some investment in there, but trying to sort of get an understanding of when the base figure had only been recalculated in 2017, how there's sort of significant spike in charge. I'd encourage council to actually perhaps open a broader dialogue with their organisations and actually see, what figure is sustainable. Can we come up with a better approach across the board that gives our community organisations a chance to thrive, rather than seeking to put a capital expenditure recovery rate of, say, 15% on it.
Good, thank you.
One final question, if I may. Yes. Just in relation to maximising the use of the TCA grounds. I mean, can you just describe briefly how much you're using it, and whether there's, you know, like there's value out of the asset as such.
Yeah, I'll talk anecdotally to that. I don't have figures in front of me, but absolutely the TCA ground use would be amongst the highest in the city of Hobart. The Hobart Football Club will train on the TCA from approximately 4 till 8 o'clock on a Tuesday. That includes sort of juniors, seniors programs. On a Thursday we will train from a bit later. We'll include our master rules from sort of about 5:30 through to around 8 o'clock. On a Monday and Wednesday, the Dosa Football Club is based at the TCA ground. They will train for their senior and reserves programs. On a Wednesday, the Hobart Football Club actually runs their Auskick for an hour prior to Dosa's training as well, and understand that there's a number of, so you have 16 weeks where there's senior football sort of taking up at least 2 games on a Saturday at the ground, as well as most weekends sort of a complement of Southern Tasmanian Junior Football League games, and particularly at the moment from other clubs as we see sort of stretched resourcing on other grounds given the sort of wet conditions. We're seeing an increasing amount of sort of cancellations at other grounds that have moved to the TCA. So as far as usage of the TCA, I'd say it'd be up, 90, 100%. It'd be pretty close up there, and if it wasn't for cancellations, it probably would be 100%.
Yeah, great.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for that.
Thank you. Now, I've just got a couple of questions. Your proposal is that we consider setting the ground hire fee at $7,000 per year, including lighting, and then also asking the committee to provide for a refund of ground booking fees when the ground is closed. So both those things would require another officer report. We can't decide that. We could ask the officers to investigate a bit more, because I've got a few questions from the memo too. So I appreciate you coming in and giving us a very detailed look at your club, and if you resume your seat now, we will consider it as a committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Munnings.
Thank you.
I've got a question regarding, first, if that's okay with the committee, where we're saying here that we are recovering 15% of the cost. Is that the 15% when we add all the fees that we get from all the clubs, or is it we're saying 15% of the club usage of the grounds, or is it? So I'm not quite sure how you're getting the 15% from.
Look, I'd refer that to Mr. Avery.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Avery.
Through the chair, so that's 15% recovery on our total costs across all the grounds. So that's all of our grounds.
So each of the clubs contribute towards that 15%?
That's correct, yes.
Equally,
yeah.
or according to the
it
usage?
would vary from ground to ground, depending on, I guess, every ground has a different operating cost and different cost to prepare. And we get different income levels per ground, and as Josh alluded to, different hire rates depending on the quality of the facility.
Yeah, I suppose I've been working as a teacher all day, so my mind's a little bit blank. But so, for example, all the users of the the Hobart TCA ground, all their fees are put into one pile, and that represents 15% of the cost.
Through Chair, approximately across the board. That 15% is across the board. I can't comment on what TCA ground came up at specifically, whether that was 15 or 20.
Right, but it's a sum total of all the income from each of the grounds that would contribute towards the 15%, and then it's proportioned out according to their usage. Would that be it? So for example, the Hobart Football Club, if they used it 50% of the time, they would pay 50% of the 15%.
Through the Chair, we actually charge an hourly rate. So Hobart Football Club charges would depend on how many hours per week that they actually use the ground, rather than a proportion, I guess, or a percentage of the overall costs for preparing that ground.
Yeah, and I suppose the 85% you have said in the memo as what the ratepayers pay as a subsidy, how does that benchmark against other councils or other equivalent councils?
Through the Chair, we did an exercise probably about the same time, 2017. So these are older figures, and it's probably an exercise we do need to look at again. We looked at comparable councils on the mainland, so similar sized cities on the mainland, and most of them fell between 12 and 15% at that point in time. And that was looking at cities like Bendigo and Geelong, which have similar sports that use our grounds, but also similar sized cities.
I'm sorry to dominate one further question, and then So at least another club has got considerable subsidy in addition to the subsidy of 85%. So
Yeah, through the chair, I can't comment on that because I'm not aware of who that is or who that might be. So I'd need to get further information
okay.
prior to making a comment.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll open up further questions. Councillor Coates and.
Thank you. Look, yeah, question and discussion, I guess. It was a very informative report. Thank you for putting it together. It was a very informative deputation we just heard. I guess it's probably true to say that clearly the model that the City of Hobart's been working with is an hourly rate model. At the outset, I guess the difficulty of that model is it potentially jeopardises people wanting to play more, get more participation in. You know, the more hours they're using the facility, the more they pay. Now, that's fair to an extent, I guess, more hours, more wear and tear, but it sounds like some of the other clubs just sort of are able to pay a set fee, and then obviously they have the incentive to get more participation and use it more. And I guess what we've heard from Hobart Footy Club tonight is that they've sort of looked at it and gone, well, hold on a second, we're obviously a heavy user, we've got all these juniors, women's, etc., and that means that we end up paying quite an amount more. So it's a very interesting proposal that's before us, and I think there's merit in potentially exploring it. Even from a viewpoint that the last benchmark was done back in 2017, it's probably reasonably timely, but that is refreshed in any event. I guess I'd just like to touch upon, I mean, I've been up to the TCA and it's pretty dated, I guess. Obviously, the playing field, from what I'm hearing, and I'm not a footy player, obviously is kept in top-notch condition, but, and through you, maybe to the director, is it true we've got just demountable toilets up there?
Yep, through the chair, yeah, certainly at the southern end of the ground, we've got demountable toilets. We do have toilets within the new HC Smith Stand building, but for the general public toilets, there is a demountable toilet at that southern end of the ground. As noted by Mr Munting, we're going through an exercise at the moment where we're preparing designs to improve that southern area of the ground as per our endorsed TCA ground master plan. And we should be in a position to present those designs back up to committee over the next month or two.
And I guess the other question is, and it's interesting because obviously it was mentioned at the start of Mr Munting's presentation, and I pulled up the article here from the Mercury where I think the provenance of this started, which is the Kingborough clubs being worried because they were going to get charged $15 an hour. In our report, we've got up their game time list as $90, but then going up a further 5.5% to $95 as of October. With that increase in fees, and I appreciate that Hobart City Council's under financial stress, as are a lot of organisations, but when we were looking at the hourly fees, do you know if there was any benchmarking taken to look at what other ones in the Greater Southern area we're looking at?
Through the chair, no, we've had this fee structure in place for probably 20 years, I reckon. So we review it each year depending on improvements we've done to the ground and I guess looking at the criteria as noted in the memo there, but we haven't compared to other neighbouring councils in setting those fees.
Now, I've just got a message that the Deputy Lord Mayor has had to leave because she's had connection problems, so the Deputy Lord Mayor is no longer at the meeting. Now, Councillor Sherlock, did you have a question?
I did, but I think Councillor Coates pretty much covered it. But I suppose just thanking Mr Munting for his deputation and also the officers for their report. But tonight we're really just receiving, I suppose, the deputation from the football club, and as you alluded to earlier, I think, Chair.
Yeah, although we could, the recommendation from the office could be a little bit and investigate further.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to suggest that, if that's okay. Yes. Is that all right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think if we could just be a little bit more thorough in what we want to do, which is investigate the... sorry, my notes here.
Could we consider the proposal that's put to us?
Yeah.
The officers would have to report to, and maybe a benchmark of our surrounding council areas, because if we've had the same sort of fee structure for 20 years, it seems like it's probably due for another look at it.
And I do also accept that there's certain parts of different areas that are going to be looked into as part of the master plan. So I don't, don't want to double up the work in that sense for the officers.
Okay, so you will move the recommendation with
Yeah,
those
sure.
additional
Yeah.
things. So we consider the proposal from the Hobart Football Club and also do a review of surrounding municipal fees. Is there anything else we need to add into that? I think that will come back to a report to us anyway, wouldn't it? So, and if necessary, we could move from there. Because there is another deputation tonight, I intend to put that motion unless there's any further dissent. Oh, sorry, yes.
Just to be really clear, that report that will come back to us will include options like a fixed fee for the year.
A review.
Yeah.
I expect a review, a complete review, which would be how best can we help serve our sporting club, such as the Hobart Football Club. And I think we do a pretty good job, I must admit. If you go around on a Saturday morning, all our grounds are, unless it's raining, full of people and participants. So it's that we're sort of fine-tuning it in a way. Yeah. So I don't think there's been any criticism of any of our officers' work because they do a fantastic job. Okay, I intend to put that recommendation with the recommendation that's in our books with that additional thing. I put that. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. So what will happen, that recommendation will go to the full council. Oh, we will stay here. All right. Oh, we come back here for a report. So it doesn't have to get approval of the full council at this stage. So it'll come back at a subsequent committee meeting. Thank you very much. Now we move on to the next deputation. Mr. Klaus, now I'm dreadful at pronouncing German names, but if you say, Klaus, if you'd like to join us in your deputation and maybe introduce the people who are going to help you.
Thank you. So there are two of us here at the table and the backup team is behind, so just in case we drop the bundle, I've got support. So sitting in I'll start with the back, one of the people there is Nigel Clutterbuck. Nigel is actually the president of Scouts Tasmania, which supervises the whole of the organisation, and they're principally responsible for providing us with guidance and instructions and whatever at our level. Then Mark Hosking, who's one of our committee members in the Parent Support Committee members. And Linda is here at the table, and she has agreed to go and make sure that I don't say anything wrong at this particular meeting. And so you don't get bored. Linda will actually have a specific part that she will talk about once you get sick and tired of listening to me talk. My name is Klaus Felsch, and I'm the group leader of the First Durban Sea Scout Group. My job is basically to ensure that the scouting program is delivered, that is, the training program, the youth programs are delivered, and I'm supported by a group support committee and by about 24 adult leaders in delivering those programs for the Scout Group. So before I go any further, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and present our case to this committee. It's very much appreciated, and thank you for the invitation. It is very pleasing to be in Hobart, and the Hobart City Council has supported us actively over the years, notably in an event right at the end of what we were hoping would be the end of COVID, when we received a $2,000 grant to go and run a revival event to try and get everybody back on the ground and into a face-to-face scouting environment. That was a terrific event, and we managed to get an additional bit of funding for that to go and support the entertainment industry by actually bringing in a couple of entertainers for the evening and just paying them for it. I must say that the entertainment wasn't to my liking, but the kids didn't seem to mind, so it was well spent, and it injected a little bit of life into the very struggling entertainment industry, and the Hobart City Council has supported us in that sort of manner throughout, so it's really much appreciated. Just to give you a little bit of background, the first Derwent Sea Scout group was founded in 1931 and has been located in its current location at McVilly Drive next to the Domain Slip since that time. So this is our 91st year in that location. We've been operating continuously at that time as a Sea Scout group. I know we don't have the sea, it's just the river, but it's a pretty impressive river, and water activities form a core part of our program. So the presence on the river is essential to our operation. Earlier this year, we received advice from Tasports, who have been our landlords effectively in their various guises for the 91 years, that they did not intend to renew the lease. And in fact, in July this year, they issued us with a notice of ceasing our lease as of the 30th of November this year. Subsequent discussions with them have indicated there's some flexibility, and that may not have to happen until sometime in the middle of next year at this stage. But we have received official advice from Tasports that they intend to cease the lease. As a result, we are looking for a permanent home for the Sea Scout group for the next 91 years, if we can arrange that, or at least the next 30 years, if that's possible. We're the largest Sea Scout group in Tasmania. We're the second oldest Sea Scout group in the country. We've been second oldest continuously operating Sea Scout group in the country. We have around 100 youth members, some 24 leaders, and an active committee of about 20 adults who are part of that group. We have had, in the 91 years, over 2,500 youth members go through the group over that time. And the scouting program typically starts at the age of 5, where they are Joey Scouts. Just to give you a little bit of an aside, I know it's wasting a little bit of time, but the Joeys tonight are doing a virtual visit to the Strawn police station online. They're getting a good tour of what happens to them if they end up on the wrong side of the tracks, etc. And so that's the Joey Scouts starting at age 5, and our group finishes at the age of 18 for the Venturer Scout groups, and after that the Venturers can elect to go into Rover Scouts until 25. A number of them at the age of 18 though transfer into the leader stream, and they become our young leaders of tomorrow, becoming active Scout leaders as adults. So there's a continuous presence of about 13 years where a Scout joins at 5, exits our group at 18, but then can continue on in Scouting either as a leader or as a Rover Scout. And just for your information, this year the Australian Rover Moot is a big collection of all the rovers in Australia. They're all going to be here in Hobart, and some of them will be staying in all sorts of places, including our Scout Hall for a couple of nights, even though we don't have any showers. So if you see a rover, just be polite and acknowledge the fact that we don't have a shower.
The Director of Planning didn't hear that, because you probably haven't.
I could show this so later. Our members come from all over the Hobart area. We have a large group that is growing rapidly. So since that revival day, our group has grown by 27% in youth membership. And that is because we have what I call the secret sauce of Scouting. That is, we have the right leaders, we have the right gear, and we have the ability to offer an exciting, challenging and rewarding youth program for all of our youth members. That brings in the kids and brings in the parents, and from that group we can then draw on leaders and supporters for that group. If you take out any of those components of that program, then we will not be able to deliver as an effective program as we do now. One of our key strengths and the reason for our success is the water activities program. That requires storage and ready access to boats. So every week we have the ability to get the boats out in the water after school for 2 to 3 hours. Kids do their sailing, rowing or kayaking, and then bring the boats back again before it gets too dark. That's the success of our program as far as I can understand and as far as I've been able to observe. I might pass on the next part to Linda.
I haven't repeated part of it, but okay. So,
Sorry, Linda, perhaps if you could concentrate on what you'd like the city to do, because the time is sort of run out a bit.
absolutely.
That'd be good if you could. Yep.
Yep. What we'd appreciate from Hobart City is whether you could assist us in exploring possible long-term alternate locations. As Klaus mentioned, Tasports, our current landlord, has advised us that we will no longer have our hall lease will not be renewed as of November this year, after actively engaging with them. Subsequent conversations has led to them saying that we can stay there till autumn, end of autumn next year, but at the moment it doesn't look like we'll have a hall beyond that point. We would appreciate it if Hobart City Council could help us identify other suitable locations which are adjacent to the water, because, as mentioned, we've got a unique requirement of needing hall storage hall boat storage, so requirements getting easy access into and out of the water and whatnot. So we would like the Scout unit to keep going for another 90 plus years. If Hobart City Council could assist us in locating other possible locations for us to exist near the water, that would be much appreciated.
On Hobart City Council land?
On Hobart City Council land.
Yes, we don't intend to take over. If I can add to that as well, that there is considerable interest from the government in Tasmania in this one. So Minister Ogilvie has decided to convene a working group meeting, and we would love to have Hobart City Council participate as a key stakeholder in that working group. The first meeting is going to be on the 7th of September, and I can get you the further details later.
Good. Okay, well, perhaps that's a good period to stop and seek questions from the committee. I know Councillor Sherlock has got a time limit here.
Yes.
So would you like to ask a question?
Could I just grab one of those, if that's okay?
I'll get you the special one with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can just take it away, and then I did read the recommendation, and then just based on what's just been said, maybe you could add to the fact that the working group has been suggested, and maybe.
The director has just informed me that there has been a person nominated from the organisation.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Any further questions?
No questions, but thank you. I hope we can help you find somewhere. I'm sure we can.
Councillor Coates?
Oh, just out of curiosity, for your benefit, I don't normally sit on this committee. I come today because there's a vacancy. But when you said you'd negotiate with Tasports and then extended it out, what's the reason they sort of kicked you out after 90 years? Is it completely unfeasible, or do you think there's an element of we can help you advocate with them for the existing facility?
So it's our understanding that Tasports has planning some development opportunities for that particular site. We're not sure what they're planning and what the scope is. They haven't shared that information with us at this stage. But yes,
so it's not that they are viewing you as a bad tenant in any way or anything like that. It's just that that space will physically be used for something else. Yeah.
That's our belief. That's what their intent is, but we have to clarify that, and we're hoping to tease that out at the working group meeting.
So it seems like it's pretty important or very significant that Mr Ogilvie has convening that working group. It seems like there'll be some impetus from up top to find a solution. I wonder at this stage if there's been no further questions, perhaps if you resume your seat, and then, because we may be lacking quorum if we don't conclude this meeting very shortly. Thank you very much for your presentation.
I do have some...
I have had a visit to the site, and it's not a conflict of interest, pecuniary interest, but I was a former Sea Scout there centuries ago, literally centuries ago. So perhaps what I would suggest is that we include in the recommendation from the officers there that the officers help to identify and explore options of locations that are owned by the city. and that would help also the working group, I imagine, as well. Because we've got a lot of significant sites around the foreshore, and I'm thinking of the Battery Point slip yards that is significantly owned by Hobart City Council, and under the slip, my understanding of the master plan there, it is to encourage sea-based and land-based maritime activities. So that might be, but there might be other sites as well, because obviously the city owns a lot of, when I say we, the city owns a lot of real estate around the waterfront. So I'm sure that the officers would be able to access details of those properties a lot easier than a community group outside. So I wonder if either Councillor Fox, thank you, would you like to add those extra words?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fox. Any further discussion? One thing I did notice about the deputation, they didn't mention that it was it's not just Boy Scouts, it's Joeys and Scouts and Venturers, which means it doesn't discriminate about whatever gender they are. And I think in discussions with the group earlier, there are some, let's say, challenging individuals that have grown by belonging to that organisation, youngsters who have grown particularly. So I was very happy when the group told me that. So Councillor Fox has moved the recommendation with the additions of identify and explore various other locations owned by the City of Hobart, and noting that the city has already appointed someone to be on that working committee. So I put that. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it unanimously. Now, again, I think it's a decision of the committee. It won't have to go to council. Come back? Yeah. So it won't have to go to full council, so it can be actioned straight away, presumably tomorrow. To start. And I'm sure the officers will be in further touch with you. Yeah. Thank you again for your deputation tonight. Thank you. And now we'll move on. That motion carried unanimously. Did I put it?
Yes.
Right, thank you. It's been a heavy week. All right, so we move on. The agenda. So the 7.1, would someone like to move the status report? Thank you, Councillor Fox. Put that, those in favour say aye. Oh, you've got a question?
Yeah, through you to the Director. March last year for the renaming, and says you're in discussions with the owner. What's the delay?
Well, we've only just recently signed the new lease of the park, so I think that we were a bit reluctant to enter into serious discussions around the naming until such time as we had commitment by that organisation to agree to a lease. So now that we've got that, then if we can seriously entertain those conversations.
Yeah, and talking to the representatives of the owners yesterday, it seems like yesterday, a long time ago, but it was yesterday, they're very keen to participate in renaming. They've got some ideas. So would you, Councillor Fox, move this? Those in favour say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it. Responses to questions without notice. Thank you, Councillor Fox. I put that. Those in favour say aye, those against say no. It seems a positive program. Continues. Any questions without notice?
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
It's kind of a follow-on to the response to my previous question. Thank you for providing a response with those numbers. Just wondering if we have an idea of the costings for that, because that was sort of to inform further rollout of the program. It's great that we've got a couple of locations in the city, but I think it would be really fantastic if we could look into the feasibility of having them, you know, maybe one in Sandy Bay, and one in North Hobart, one in Newtown, for example. What that would set us back. I think it's quite a
So
lot.
you'll take it on notice?
I'll take it on notice, Chair.
Take it on notice. Good question. Any further questions? Being no further questions, I close the open and thank everyone. Well,